many of y'all watch the Super Bowl for the commercials? Nobody watched the Super Bowl anyways. Had some great commercials last night too. Where is everybody? There we go. Task. Ah, there we are. Share screen. Share screen. All right. If you'll go to today's Moodle page, this is what it should look like. It's going to be the newsletter project. There's a couple of things you'll need to download. First of all, you can download the newsletter information, which is what I passed out for you. If you do that, you can get a color version of the project steps as it's stepped out through and through, rather than a black and white. You can download an example of what the finished product should look like. I do recommend doing this so you can at least understand where everything should be laid out on the page. I didn't print you off an example, so you can at least download it and see this is where I want this one to be and where the pictures should be laid out on your project. Also, there's the page information. These are all the articles that you'll use in the text or use in the document. And this is just a plain text document, so it'll open up in a program called Text Edit. And I think we've done this before in a previous document. So these are the articles that you'll copy and paste into InDesign. For the pictures, I've compressed them all into one folder, and that's what this newsletter pictures zip file is. When you click on it, you can choose Save File or Open with Archive Utility. Either one will work the same. I'll click OK. Let's get it to save to my Downloads folder. And this is what it will look like if you just saved it. Where is it? There it is. So this is the newsletter pictures. If you double click on it, it'll open up a new folder. That folder should be called Pictures. Inside of that folder are 4 pictures that we'll use in the document that we create. So that's what the zip file will allow you to do. It'll zip them all together. Just I can't really upload a folder. I have to zip it all together, and you have to unzip it, uncompress it, which will be inside of that one. Everybody cool on that? Because I know that's kind of a confusing thing if you've never used it. For today's project, this is what it will look like in InDesign. Last time we talked about how to add images. We talked about how to format and set tabs for the text that you're using. Pretty much everything in here will be in its own separate text box and also its own separate image box. But also, we're going to go to another page and add more information. So let me show you how you can set up your document for multiple pages. File, New, we're going to create a new document. Now in our case, the number of pages that we're going to work on is going to be 2 pages. It's going to be a front and a back. We also want it to be letter size, so notice I've got 8 by 8. There's letter. For the new thing we're going to be working on, we need to set a number of columns, and this is going to set up some divisions along your page, vertical divisions, that will allow us to put the text in there and to keep everything consistent. So the number of columns I want you to divide it into would be 4. The gutter is the amount of space that's going to be in between each column. When I set this up, I'll show you what it is. But for now, we can just keep it at, I'm going to change it from that to 1/8 of an inch. And 1/2 an inch on all sides. So let's link that. There we go. 1/2 an inch margins. Everything else will be good. Don't worry about the bleed. We'll say OK. Aha. Already I can see I did something wrong. So let me back this up and redo it for you. If you do happen to type in anything wrong, you can always go to File and do the Document Setup. That'll bring back up your Document Setup options here. I can choose more options. And let me see. I don't have my document margin set up. That's what I'm looking for. I'm working without a net, so I'll hit Cancel. I bet it's under... Oh, I tell you what. Let's just erase it and we'll start a new one. Sorry about that. Everything else will remain the same. 2 of them, 4 columns. Should be 0.125. I bet I typed in 1.25. Margins 1/2 an inch. We'll say OK. Much better. Forgot to type in the right document size. Y'all gotta catch me on this. Document setup. 8.5 by 11. There we go. I didn't have a V8 this morning. Now these middle portions here, you can see it's now divided into 4 separate areas. The little gap that's in between each of the margins, that's your gutter. So this is the little distance between each one of them that you can put your text into, and so the text doesn't touch one another once you start placing your text inside of that one. I'm going to quickly build some of the different things on here. So you already know how to import an image. So if I wanted this top header to go onto it, by the way, this is called a banner. If you ever read a newspaper, usually there's a graphic on top of it. So this is the banner, or you can also call it a flag. So this will be at the top. Remember to import an image. We're going to choose our rectangle frame tool. I'm going to click and drag it across here. And I believe I've given it a certain size that I want it to be. Remember, you can type in the specific size of it up here. In this case, it'll be 7.5 by 1.5 tall. That was close, 1.5. Do y'all remember the how to drop in an image into a file? Very good. File and place. So now all I've got to do is go to my, I believe it's in the downloads folder. Art, downloads, pictures. Aha, there's the header right there. And we'll drop it in, so now I've got the header already set up. Second thing I'll need to do, I'm going to zoom in so we can only see what I'm working on, is to set up the information in a text box below it. And that'll be this information right here. So let's grab a text box. I'll flow it in. I can go to my, there we are, page information, so I can open it up. All you've got to do is copy the text. So here's the stuff for the banner. Highlight it, Command C, or go to Edit and Copy. Go in here, Command V to paste it. And I'm just going to quickly format it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it'll be Optima. It should be bold. And it should also be white. Text color. Remember, the text may be white, but to change the color of the blue for the background, we've got to swap over to our selection tool. Then I can click on over here, or I can choose a pre-made blue, which would be right here, to give it for the background is there. The next thing for this one, we need to have this text centered not only horizontally, but also vertically with the text box that I created. Now to do things centered, I can choose my type tool, and just select the type. Here's your center alignment right here. Now it works out for a horizontal alignment, but to do it vertically, I need to choose my selection tool again. And then look up at the very top towards the right-hand side of your control bar. This is your vertical alignment that you can choose. Right now it's aligned to the top, but if I was to choose this one, it'll drop it down and make it vertically aligned to the center of my box that way. This way, no matter what size I create my text box, it'll always stay in the center of it as well. Make sense? All good? Very, very simple. I'm just going to drag that up. And we'll place it underneath there. All right. Same thing for this. I'm just going to copy and paste this over so you don't have to watch me reformat it. But I will show you how to format the entire paragraph text box that's right here. So for this first article, let's make a new text box by just clicking and dragging. I'm not going to worry about the size of it for now. I'm going to go back over to my text. Let's copy in that first text article. Now this is going to be multiple paragraphs. So when I copy it, Command C and Command V, it'll look like this. Looking pretty good, but notice, remember what I said, if the line is too long, and I can kind of eyeball this, it's getting pretty long, I'll need to break it up into multiple columns. To do multiple columns within a text box, remember this text box spanned over 4 different columns. So I've got this one, and these 2 on this side. I'm going to highlight all of my text and look over to the very far right hand side to these buttons over here. This will control the number of columns that are set within a text box. So I've got one text box, and right now I've got one column that it'll be divided into. Let's divide it into 2. So I'll type in 2 and hit return. There we go. Now my text is divided into 2 columns, still within that same text box. So even if I was to adjust the size of it, make it smaller, it'll still stay within 2 columns, even though it's spanning 4 columns over that way. Now I believe in your instructions I'll tell you to say span 4 columns, and that's what I mean. I want it to go all the way across the page this way, even though you'll divide it into 2 columns once it's done. Sometimes I may say span 2 columns, and this is what I'm looking for. Go over 2 column widths on your page to respan it that way. Any questions before I move on? If you can get that, that's the hardest thing to remember. Everything else is going to fall into place. Now let's actually worry about doing page indentions, or excuse me, paragraph indentions. It's, since this is broken up into multiple paragraphs, what I need to do is to add an indent to at the beginning of each paragraph. Before, if you've ever typed in Microsoft Word, how'd y'all do an indent? Just hit tab at the beginning of it. I'm going to show you the professional way of doing it, how a graphic designer will do it. I'm going to select all of my text, and I'm going to automatically add an indent at the beginning of each paragraph that I have. If you'll look up towards the center right of your document, you'll see a series of little places you can type in different information. This one right here is your first line left indent, and it's going to indent the first line no matter based on whatever information I typed in or measurement I type into that box. And so for this first line, I believe it's going to be 0.25, quarter of an inch. So I'm going to type in 0.25. When I hit return, now it will automatically indent the first line of that paragraph over that much. Some other type of indents, you can do an entire left indent where the entire paragraph will be indented over. Of course, there's the first line. You can also do a right indent, and then you can do the last line right indent as well. This is what I want you to do for this one. Also, once you've got it all set up, I'm not going to format everything. You can adjust the size of your box until the bottom 2 lines line up nice and tight right there. Any questions so far? So that's how to do a left line indent. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing out on anything that I'm asking you to do. Everything else is pretty cool. Alright. We'll skip down. Next thing, of course, you'll do is I want you to draw a line to divide out one side and the other. We'll paste it into there, copy and paste. We'll do the same thing for this text. So I want you to make a text box that will format the header of this article. And I also want you to make a text box and format the information for this article below it. I'm going to select both of them, do a copy, and paste in. And I'm just going to set it in for there right there. Notice that this has that beginning text indent for this one as well. Next thing we'll need to do is to drop in a picture and have this picture, the text, wrap around it. Notice that when I click on it and drag, the text will automatically flow around it instead of having the text on top of it or covering up anything. No matter where I put it, the text is going to flow and look nice around it. And we're going to place it at the very top right hand side. So for this one, I'm going to scooch over to the side to show you. Let's grab our rectangle frame tool. We'll click and drag. And I believe I want it to be a specific size, so 1 inch tall and 1 1/4 inch wide. 1 inch wide, 1 1/4 inch tall. So that'll be the size of my text box. Let's put in our image. I'll hit cancel. Have it selected. So File, Place. In this case, I believe he's called the Program Director. And we'll say Open. Now I've got him placed inside of here. Now notice that he's being cropped off. What I need to do is have him fit inside of here. To do this, if you have your black arrow, the selection tool selected, you can click on this little round circle and you'll see you get a bounding box that actually covers his entire image even though it's cropped off. I can click on any one of these 4 corners or the sides and drag and resize it to fit inside of here. Now here's a trick. I'd take note on this. Make sure to hold down the Shift key whenever you resize something. Holding the Shift key will keep everything, all your proportions constrained. If you don't, you're liable to squeeze them up or get them distorted and it just won't look right if you just resize it that way. Holding the Shift key, let's see, will keep him proportional, and you can resize it, and you can even readjust it till he's inside of that rectangle frame. Pretty cool? Alright, so that's step one. Let's drag him over to where he needs to be. Now right now, if I just placed him on top of there, notice he's covering up the text. What I want to do is have the text wrap around what I have for the image. Make sure you don't click on the circle accidentally when you move them. To have the text wrap around, I need to open up another palette on the side. And this is called my text wrap palette. I don't see it on this side, so I'm going to go up to Window, and let's see, there it is. Text wrap is what you're going to be looking for. With it open, your text wrap palette looks like this, and you've got a couple of options you can choose from. First thing you got to do, make sure you have your image selected, then choose the second option. This will wrap around the bounding box. With it clicked, watch the text jump around it. Click, and there we go. Now it's wrapping nicely around my image. No matter where I put it, it'll readjust where it's at. The second thing I want to do is, I don't like the way the text is touching the edge of my image here. I want to have a little bit more distance to offset it. So to offset the amount of wrapping, to give yourself a little more space, that's where these options come in. Let's see, first of all, make sure it's selected. Then you can type in the amount of offset that you want it to have. In this case, I want it to be 1/8 of an inch on all sides, so 0.125. Got my little link selected, so when I click, there we go. Notice it's got a lighter blue outline going around it, and that's giving you the offset. Now my text isn't touching the edge, it's actually wrapping around the sides of it as well. Any questions about doing text wrap? Am I going too fast? If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask me while you're working on it. So let's jump back over to this one. This one will pretty much do the same thing. Actually, this will be able to fit. You won't have to do text wrapping on this one. So I'm just going to copy that into there and paste it. Remember, you know how to do formatting. You know how to now set indentions. We'll choose the rectangle tool. This next picture that you place into it, I'm going to hit Command D to drop it in, is going to be a huge picture. So when you hit open, notice it's still cropped out. Oops. You're going to have to resize it. Pretty big. Scale it down and make sure it fits inside of there as well. It's okay to crop out anything that's not necessary. So I can actually make this a little bit smaller, and I don't have to worry because all that at the top isn't necessary. So make it small and make it fit into this area. Small. Oops. Resize it. Of course, I need to resize my image again so that she's not cropped out. That works as well. Pretty cool. Once you do this, make sure you can see the text. So again, I'd have to move it down a little bit, crop out that, and everything else stays within there as well. On the second page, you're going to continue doing more of the same thing. There we go. So let's click and drag over there. In this case, you're going to, first of all, flow in the article that you created, and then you're going to create another text box on top of it, call it Track to Success. Instead of adding wrapping to an image, this time you're going to select the text box and you're going to add wrapping to the text box itself. So it doesn't have to be just images. The text box can also be wrapped, and you can place it around there as well. You already know how to add an image to there. This very last thing that you're going to work on is going to be the trickiest one of them all. So let's copy that over and we can work through it. Paste. I'm going to ask you to make a text box that spans 4 columns, so all 4 of these. Let's go in and scroll down. These are all the donors that have to be included in our newsletter. So I'm going to scroll down, hold down Shift and click. Command C to copy, Command V to paste. Next thing I need to do is to select all. By the way, if you hit Command A, it'll select all of the text within the document that you have very quickly. Where do I go if I wanted to set this to 4 columns? What side of my screen? Top right, very good. This one right up here is where your columns are at. Let's put it into 4 columns. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, we'll keep the gutter the same. Everything's broken up into 4 columns. I'm going to format this so it needs to be Optima, regular, 9-point, 4 columns. Yeah. And it's going to be a little bit smaller as well. One thing to notice, however, is I need to make sure that my hyphenation is turned off. I don't want any of my words to automatically be accidentally broken up where they don't need to be. So I'm going to select my text again. To turn off hyphenations, if you noticed it was in the top right-hand side. By unclicking it, it'll dehyphenate a word. And I see I didn't have any hyphenations on there. But that's where you would go to unhyphenate any paragraphs that you're working on from there. For this one, what I want to do is to set not just my first line indent, but we're also going to do a left indent. And this is going to be something special. So for my left indent, I want to move everything over 1/8 of an inch. Highlight it, 0.125, hit return. So now I've got a left indent. Everything's pushed over. For my first line, however, I'm going to make it go back a negative 0.125. So this is what's going to happen when I do that. It's going to shift everything else back over. But notice that some of these are not shifted back over. Why do you think it did that?
It's the line that takes up 2 lines.
Bingo. It's taking up 2 lines. If I didn't do this, when somebody read this, they would read this as Nelladine Witten, WMU, FBC. Then they would think Canton was a donor. By having it shifted over, it's telling people, hey, this information is associated with the previous line. Same way with this one. They would think Hills-Jackson. What is Hills-Jackson and how they donate? Well, now they know that these two are associated with the same thing. This kind of goes back to having good contrast. By having that little bit of contrast, it alerts people that, hey, there's something special about this, and usually they pick up on that, hey, it's associated with the same thing. If I was to continue typing on, and actually have an entire paragraph full of dummy text, everything else would stay aligned with that one right there until I hit the next return, and then it would rework back over that way. Pretty cool? So that's what comes in. This is called a hanging indent. If you ever need to do any type of indentations, if the first line is back further to the left than the rest of them, that's a hanging indent to work on from there. All right. I believe that's all the newest things that I can teach you for InDesign. Like I said, we haven't covered everything you can do in InDesign, but this is just the basics to get you through the rest of the projects. Any questions before I let y'all go to be able to work on it? You've got all class period today. You've got class period on Wednesday to work on it. On Wednesday, I'll also give you a project you can work on to review for next Monday's test in here. Alrighty, turning back over to you. Let y'all get to work.